Welcome back. This is Beyond the Box Score. We are talking through some Week 7 matchups. My guy Ryan Heath from Fantasy Points Data is here with me. As always, this is Mastering Matchups. Thanks for being here. Ryan, we're going to start right at the top with our guy, Bill Croskey-Merritt, as we always do. You know me, I can't help myself but start there. So I do have, even after a disappointing Week 6, Bill Croskey-Merritt in my top 12. I think this week, we got a clearly defined top 6 or 7 guys that are the elite backs that ends with Josh Jacobs, Javonte Williams, Devon Achane. This Rico Dowdle ranking is made with the assumption that he's going to get most or all of the work. We don't know what's going to happen with Chuba Hubbard. Quinshon Judkins up into this range, obviously a game script dependent type of running back. And he gets the Dolphins this week at home for Cleveland, a game where he could run all over them. But after that, it's like Kyren Williams, I like the matchup. Saquon Barkley, maybe not so much. Like there's very few guys that I can push ahead of Ja'Cory Croskey-Merritt. So just real quick, the matchup notes on him. The Cowboys, obviously we know, have been bad. Tackling, have been bad defensively all over the place. But specifically against the type of runs that Bill specializes in, the Cowboys have been bad. They're allowing a 63% success rate to man gap runs, up from 56% against zone runs, and 68% of Bill's runs have been man gap runs. Dan Quinn has talked specifically about liking that aspect of what he brings to the offense. And so I do feel confident going back to the well here in a potential shootout. You can add anything on that top 12 if you want. What I actually want to get your thoughts on the most, Ryan, is first how you're doing, of course. You told me you're up way too late arguing with people online about football, which is never a good thing, but it's such an easy pitfall to find yourself in. But two, I don't know what to do with basically anything at the running back position beyond Bill Croskey-Merritt. So you can take one or two, but please do take two at some point. I don't know what to do with these guys.
Okay. Yeah, first I'll say on Bill, I agree with the aggressive ranking here. The Cowboys specifically have been really vulnerable to opposing running backs through the air. And Bill actually ran a 40% route share last week, season high. Bill's in a great spot. Love him, like the ranking. But below that, in terms of stuff that stands out to me, J.K. Dobbins down at RB21 feels a little bit low to me. This is a 7-point spread. It's a good matchup in terms of yards before contact attempt allowed. The Giants allowing the 7th most, Broncos generating the 3rd most. Maybe you can be a little bit worried about, well, if it's not a close game, then RJ Harvey plays a little bit more, which is what we saw against the Bengals in week 4. But I think I would still feel plenty confident in moving Dobbins probably up to around where you have DeAndre Swift, Jaylen Warren, just based on total game script, those types of considerations. Aside from that, let's see. Yeah, you're right that nothing feels good in this range.
I don't think I can move him ahead of Vidal, and maybe that's just reactionary, but it's really not about the efficiency last week so much as the role. Like his role was basically right on par with Bill's. And I don't view Indianapolis is a pretty good defense, and I think they're probably easier to attack through the air. But I don't view it as like a negative matchup necessarily. And his implied total is just as high as Denver's, right? 24 for Denver, and I think 25 for the Chargers. Do you have thoughts on those two?
The only thing I would say would be, the Colts have very much been a pass funnel this year. Top 5 by P-Row allowed. It's kind of like the best Justin Herbert spot that we've actually gotten all season. Everyone's been so excited about Herbert, but this is like when I'm going to be super in on that for DFS, which we can talk in more detail about later. But yeah, that's fair. I think the only thing with Vidal is he wasn't really in that role until he broke off the 38-yard run on like the 3rd drive last week. I don't know that I'm super confident that he is like that far ahead of Hassan Haskins this week. Maybe it changes. Maybe the hot hand is different. I think Vidal's way better, so I'd get it if you want to rank him above Dobbins, but I would still prefer Dobbins to him, I think.
Okay, so I haven't dug into his drive-by-drive usage. He did start the game, so I assumed it was pretty consistent based off what I saw with like first and second half splits. Are you saying the first 3 drives, it was more like even between him and Haskins?
The first 2 drives, it was pretty even in snaps and touches. And then on the third drive, Vidal gets the 38-yard run, and then the usage very much tilted towards him the rest of the game. Then Haskins was only like 20% snap share after that.
Yeah, okay. That's interesting. It's good to follow Ryan for this very reason, among many. But like when it comes to this, when you got a new backfield situation, like things can shift drastically. You don't know how it might go, and so like getting as many clues as you can is helpful. And then I think it's easy to like overreact to like one data point, such as the 67% snap rate or whatever, and like think that's who he is now. We just saw with Michael Carter, that's not necessarily the case. Whereas Dobbins, we have a pretty good idea of who he is. Okay. That's interesting. Anything else on the matchups here? Like, let's talk about Jaylen Warren. He's playing tonight. For anybody who has that start-sit decision, like Rico Dowdle, people have been asking me, like, I saw an interesting one. That was, I have Dowdle, I have BTJ, and I have Warren. Would you start Warren? For me, I would not. I would just wait and see if we can get Dowdle, and then if not, then I'm fine with BTJ. Where does Warren fit here in what seems like a positive matchup against Cincinnati?
Yeah, that is exactly how I would approach that start sit as well. Man, it's rough. I might put Swift above Warren, but I think I'd feel better about Warren than Dobbins narrowly. So just like small kind of changing the ordering here, how you have it. Swift has been really good when the Bears have won. 18 fantasy points per game in wins over the last 2 seasons. Bears are 5-point favorites. Like that's not terrible. So yeah, I think I'd be more confident in Swift. Yeah, that's where I'd be at.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's fair. I think the Saints have decent linebackers, pretty decent defense, have been better against like these types of runs, these zone runs. They're only allowing 3.4 yards per carry. And I think Chicago and Swift are like really reliant on getting those outside zone runs unlocked and getting yards before contact. And that's basically what we saw last week when we got the explosive plays, just being able to attack that way. I don't know if it'll be as easy this week. I just have a really hard time ever telling someone that they should start Swift. But, we saw last week that worked out for sure. So that's fine. I can get down with moving him up a little bit, especially if you need some access to more upside, because if Chicago puts up a lot of points in this game, he could have a good game. We're going to get to Caleb Williams later. I am quite nervous about Caleb in this spot. Things have been trending maybe not so great lately with the accuracy with Caleb. I think Ben Johnson did a lot to kind of help him look better early on, and we're kind of seeing the more it comes down to Caleb, kind of looks like last year a little bit, and that makes me nervous. But we'll get into the passing notes later. So Alvin Kamara, you had some interesting notes on the other side of this matchup. Would you start him over Chase Brown, who plays on Thursday night?
Yeah, I would start Kamara over Brown. I would even start Kamara over David Montgomery, I think, just based on how the Buccaneers have been specifically against the run too. With Kamara, it's interesting because the Bears are also another team that is allowing a lot of production to opposing running backs, specifically through the air. They're the third most schedule adjusted fantasy points to RBs through the air. Kamara's back up at an 18% target share over the last 3 games. That's the RB4 compared to the first 3 where it was just all Juwan Johnson. The Bears, even on the ground, allowing the most adjusted yards before contact per attempt. I think you could get like not like a ceiling game out of Kamara, but I think the workload can be decent, and that this is a really strong matchup, and that the utilization has just been better. I don't know, maybe Kendre Miller ruins this, but I definitely prefer Kamara to Montgomery and Brown, and is close with Etienne.
Yeah, I will say the Bears defense, I thought, played a lot better last week. They got a little bit healthier coming out of the bye, got some guys back, and we saw them play pretty well against Croskey-Merritt. It's a different type of run scheme here with the Saints. But yeah, I don't know. For me, Kamara and like putting him over Montgomery, that's where I start to wonder, are we going too far with the mastering matchups side of things here, right? You know what I mean? Where it's like you've got Montgomery, who I think is clearly a better player, much better offense, huge shootout potential. I understand that like Vita Vea exists and running right at them is not the way to do this. But I just feel I would feel so much better putting Montgomery in my lineup than Kamara. But those are all good notes, for sure, because I think up until now it's basically been Montgomery autoplay over Kamara. But you could consider going a different direction this week. I want to stay like with that sentiment in terms of like the matchups maybe sometimes mastering us, getting a little bit too far gone down the rabbit hole here. I maybe am doing that. I actually prefer the New England backfield to the Seattle backfield this week. Am I taking the matchups too far here, Ryan? TreVeyon Henderson has not finished higher than running back 25 on any given week. He's only been top 30 in 2 of 6 games, but I continue to rank him in the top 30 basically every week. Maybe I'm just stuck here. You know what I mean? Like, I don't mean to be stuck here, but like he keeps having pretty good matchups on paper. And this is another one. So here's where I'm at on these backfields. I've got Ramondre at running back 27, Charbonnet at 28, TreVeyon at 29, and Kenneth Walker at running back 30. They're facing the Titans. Do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think I'm with you in terms of Ramondre is who I would rank the highest. I think you can maybe create a little bit more separation between him and TreVeyon just on like the recent usage, like 5 out of 5 carries inside the 10-yard line for Ramondre over the past 2 games. This is like something I've been fighting online about, staying up until 2 a.m. is the TreVeyon Henderson usage, the Patriots backfield. But yeah, like for now, I'm just kind of like, look, the last time the Patriots faced like a top 5 matchup for opposing running backs, Ramondre Stevenson put up over 20 fantasy points. He is going to be the guy that they will continuously run into the line. That won't work against most teams. It will probably work against the Titans. So to me, like it's just a Ramondre game. But I hear you on, I hear you on TreVeyon, but I would still play Walker over him.
Yeah, I like the matchup. The Titans have been actually pretty good against zone runs, but not against man runs. They're allowing 5.5 yards per man gap concept run. They've allowed only a 37.5% success rate for zone runs compared to 53% versus man gap. I think those are all good notes for Mondre. For both running backs, I think the coverage side of this matchup sets up really well. I think we're going to see Drake May potentially check down a lot more in this spot. That was one of the notes I was going to get to later, but I think let's just cover it now because I don't even know if it affects the pass catchers that much. The Titans use a ton of 2 high safety coverages, the second most in the NFL. So we're seeing lots of cover 2, cover 4, cover 6. I think specifically it's cover 4 is the one they use the most, like relative to the rest of the league. Yeah. Versus cover 4 and 2 high at large, Drake May has like really just been the best boy this year, like just following the coach's instruction to a T and checking down way more than we've seen from him in the past. Really proud of him and his development. It's so crazy for him in year 2 here because we know Drake wants to air it out, right? But yeah, checking down a lot, and we've seen like all the efficiency numbers go up because of this. They've been able to sustain drives because of this. On that note, like I think we're going to probably see more targets to the running backs here against a team that has struggled to tackle a little bit. TreVeyon Henderson actually has the most receptions of any Patriot against cover 4 specifically. And then when facing 2 high safety looks, both him and Ramondre are tied for 3rd on the team in receptions behind only Stephon Diggs and Hunter Henry. So I think it makes sense that these guys could be decent plays, especially Ramondre. Honestly, yeah, you could potentially even push Ramondre ahead of somebody like Isaiah Pacheco or Chase Brown if you wanted to.
Yeah, no, that's an awesome note with the running backs getting more involved against those looks. My note kind of in the same vein was that, yeah, from like a volume perspective, it's definitely a boost to all of the check down guys, a bit of a boost to Diggs, a bit of a boost to Henry. From like a DFS perspective, though, it's kind of a boost to Kayshon Boutte. He's got over 33% more yards per out run against cover 4 this year, 50% targeted more often since the start of last season against cover 4. And with Butte, it's downfield that he's seeing these targets against cover 4, which is very unlike every other player on the Patriots right now. Ultimately, that's probably only like a one-off like May Butte DFS stack angle, which is nowhere near my favorite DFS angle this week. But I just thought that was interesting because cover 4, you can beat it deep if the safeties are miscommunicating or if they're not playing it well. Titans generally tend to do pretty well. But yeah, I think like Butte is like sort of marginally in play as like as a desperation flex. Is still some upside here, I think.
All right, Kayshon Boutte, we will end on that and take our first break. We're talking Patriots and Titans. Exciting stuff here. We'll be right back with more matchup notes on Beyond the Box Score.
Only CBS Sports can bring you big time during the heart of Saturday afternoons. It's big time.
It's big time. It's big time. It's big time.
On CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
All right, Ryan, you have a sick no for me. We're going to talk about some of the games that are not on the main slate of DFS, and then we'll get to your DraftKings, FanDuel, all those needs for you later. But I brought up, let's talk about T. Higgins and Ja'Marr Chase against man coverage and stuff. And Ryan's like, actually, let's talk about Darnell Washington. I've got Darnell Washington up at tight end 26 this week, significantly higher than consensus. What are we looking at with Darnell Washington? Am I not high enough yet, Ryan?
You might have to show me the list and I can tell you who I would move him over. But no, for me, Darnell Washington over the past 2 weeks up at a 61% route share, higher than Jonnu and Pat Freiermuth. It's a great matchup for any inline tight end against the Bengals. 6th highest target share allowed, 2nd most receiving yards per game allowed to opposing inline receivers. And we have a direct quote from Mike Tomlin this week confirming that, yes, we want to play Darnell Washington more against 4-3 defenses. And yes, that will also be the case this week against the Bengals, a 4-3 defense. So probably like the best way to take advantage of this is just to bet his receiving yardage over, which is up 4 yards from yesterday, but I would still bet it up to 23.5. I'm seeing 22.5 on some sites right now. So that's a fun little prop, fun little rooting interest here. But yeah, would I play him over Jonnu Smith? Yes, I would. That's probably just where I would move him to. I don't hear you. You are muted.
I'm muted. Yeah, it happens. It took 6 weeks, but yeah, I finally got back in the muted circle. Darnell Washington, I had behind Jonnu Smith because I'm a fraud, but that's why we bring Ryan on here. I love it. I think all that makes sense. To me, it's still like there's bigger play potential with Jonnu, and so if I'm just taking a random stab on one of them, I leaned towards him. But I do think for all the reasons you mentioned, Darnell Washington is in play. We starting these guys over Taysom Hill against the Bears.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
You're just
good. Cool.
Will he score a Wildcat TD again? Maybe.
All right. We're looking at a low end tight end 2 then, tight end 23, top 24 for Darnell Washington, if that helps you. Okay, let's talk about the Bengals side of things here. We get a very aggressive Steelers defense that plays a lot of man coverage, which we know to be good for these receivers who are very good at winning their one-on-one matchup, and that is T. Higgins and Ja'Marr Chase, of course. How much conviction are you feeling? How are you feeling about the Joe Flacco era here in Cincinnati?
Pretty okay. I mean, 45 pass attempts from Flacco. Yeah, 10 catchable targets for Chase last week. That's 4 more than in any game since Burrow went down. And yeah, this is a great schematic matchup. Steelers are going to play a lot of single high. Chase targeted on 35% of his routes against single high looks this year. Joey Porter hasn't been shadowing, but like if he does, it will probably be on T. Higgins, which is what it was in both of their games last year. So Chase specifically, I think gets a bit of an upgrade here. And like T is fine. I would probably play T over AJ Brown, but aside from that, I like where you have him.
All right. Yeah, I could get down with that. Do you have thoughts on AJ Brown then? I feel like just the blitz heavy nature of that. I like the opportunity for him to get more one-on-one looks, but it's not like they're using man all that often on the side of the blitz. Um, he just hasn't played as well this year. Like that's what Matt Harmon's reception perception charting has found too. I've got no idea what to ever do with him, but it feels like on any given week he could erupt, and like a blitz heavy matchup has me intrigued. But I could get down with T ahead of him.
Yeah, so for me, the blitz note is always just going to be a negative for the Eagles offense as a whole because Jalen Hurts is averaging 0.33 fantasy points per dropback against the blitz. That is the QB 32 this year. Just a 38% accurate throw rate against the blitz. That ranks 33rd. Yeah, it's really rough. So yeah, while theoretically that's one fewer defender, two fewer defenders in coverage for AJ Brown to separate against. The ball's got to get there. Vikings also very heavy on the two high looks, and Dallas Goedert is actually leading the Eagles in target share against two high this season, nearly 24%, also leading in yards per out run against two high looks. AJ Brown and Davante Smith both behind him in both of those categories.
All righty. Yeah, I like that. We'll move T up then. You had some Saquon Barkley notes in this matchup, right?
I do, yeah. So while I don't think the Eagles' passing game is likely to succeed outside of the little stuff to Dallas Goedert, this should be a matchup where the Eagles try to run the ball and establish the run. Hasn't been every game lately with all of AJ Brown's complaining, but Vikings allowing the fourth most schedule adjusted fantasy points per game to opposing running backs on the ground, and also the fourth most yards per carry and the fourth highest success rate to opposing zone rush concepts. Nearly 70% of Saquon Barkley's runs have come on zone concepts this year. That is the seventh most. So for Barkley specifically, I think the only way the Eagles kind of can hope to compete and stay in this game is to get him going. It's a good schematic matchup to get him going in. So I kind of like him here. I would play him over a Kyren Williams. I would not play him over a Rico Dowdle, but it's just a little bit of extra optimism on Saquon. I understand why people would be pessimistic though.
Okay. Yeah, I've got some notes on Kyren and the Rams we'll get to later. What do you like? Would you have Judkins ahead of him?
I would have Judkins ahead of him, but that's just because this game supposedly could see 50 to 60 mile an hour wind gusts. And I'm very upset about this because I had what I felt like was an amazing Jalen Waddle take against single high. But yeah, it's not going to matter now. The total's down like 4 or 5 points, I believe. So don't worry about those two passing games this week.
Wild stuff. All right, let's get back to the non-main slate. Just finish up with a few things here for like people with start sit questions. The Tampa Bay Detroit game has the highest over under this week. Could be an awesome game. I am curious what you think about Baker Mayfield in this spot. So like, I think we're going to move Caleb down. We'll talk about that later. But right now I have Caleb Williams and Drake May ahead of Baker at QB 8, but I think Baker might actually move ahead of both of them the more that I've been thinking through the matchups. Justin Herbert, Jordan Love, Daniel Jones, Matthew Stafford are the guys behind him. I think pretty interesting matchups on each of them. If you can remember, let's try not to get out of here without talking about Indianapolis and the Chargers, because people specifically asked for matchup notes on that, and I didn't get anything on that game, but I'm curious if you do have anything. But for Baker,
I have a lot on that game. So awesome. Perfect.
Okay, definitely. We'll talk about that later then. For Baker in this Lions matchup, I feel like this is a spot where even with the depleted pass catchers, we're gonna see a good game from Baker, given like what I've found. Did you have anything specifically about this Lions defense? They're not super blitz heavy, and like that's basically. It seems weird with Aiden Hutchinson there, but like that's kind of the only way they've been able to get pressure is with the blitz. When they've not blitzed, like we saw against the Chiefs last week, they've really struggled to get pressure. And Tampa Bay's line played really well in this last game. Baker had one of the lowest pressure rates in week 6. So we're finally seeing this line back to full health. And I think that might be enough where even though we're dealing with, pass catchers 5, 6, and 7 or whatever at this point. That might be enough against Detroit's, 5, 6, and 7 secondary members. So what do you think about this matchup and the Bucs?
Yeah, no, I like it. I think maybe I like Justin Herbert a little bit more, but I could be swayed there. I don't have a ton like on the matchup. I really, any note I have here is just like Baker Mayfield is freaking awesome. He had a perfect passer rating in the second half last week when his receivers were Tez Johnson, Cameron Johnson, and Sterling Shepard and Kate Otten. Like that just breaks my brain at how he did that. I understand 49ers defense banged up, no Fred Warner, all of that stuff, of course. But come on, what Baker's doing with no pass catchers, it's unbelievable to me.
Do you have any interest in starting any of these guys in a flex situation? Like, I actually liked what I saw from Tez on film. He definitely loses some reps because he's small, he's a rookie, but he also wins some in a big way. And I think he might have caught Baker's eye with his performance last week. Shepard is probably the safest, but would you start Tez if you had to?
I would rank Tez over Shepard. Maybe I'm just biasing a little bit more towards upside there. But yeah, I think Tez is really solid. Most air yards of any of these receivers. I think one fewer target than Cameron Johnson in the second half. But yeah, to me, just like the most talent upside here is with Tez Johnson. He's who I would kind of lean to.
All right, here's where I've got the Tampa Bay guys. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see. And then if you're listening, the players that I have above Tez and Sterling Shepard are Romeo Doubs, Jamison Williams, Rashid Shaheed. We're going to get to him in a moment. Matthew Golden, Trey Tucker, Jerry Jeudy, and Wan'Dale Robinson. Probably move Jeudy down if it's actually going to be a tornado there. Behind them is like Cooper Kupp, Troy Franklin, Christian Kirk, Hollywood Brown, Jalen Coker, Kayshon Boutte, who Ryan brought up. Anybody who you think definitely needs to move up from this group?
Potentially Troy Franklin. It's a solid matchup. Giants have been pretty vulnerable to the slot. It's a man-heavy matchup, which is great for everybody in this Broncos passing game, including Bo Nix, including Cortland Sutton. I would probably lean Franklin over Kupp, but that's it. Yeah.
Okay. On the other side of the Tampa Bay matchup, we've got the home team, the Lions, with the highest implied total of any team this week, facing a Tampa Bay team that brings a ton of blitzes and can get pressure on the quarterback. So we know that can be kind of scary with Goff. At times can be disruptive for this offense. Do you have any matchup notes for the people for the Lions, pass game or run game?
I do not, unfortunately.
Okay.
I'm not. Yeah, I have trouble getting that far past the main slate.
For sure.
Early in the week, but yeah,
for sure. So Tampa Bay has been tough to run on up the middle. So maybe it's not a Montgomery game, but I do think from the vibes lately, it seems like they're going to try to get him more involved after the way last week went. For the pass game, I kind of like both receivers. It is a little bit more volatile because of Goff and how he sometimes struggles with pressure and with the blitz, but he's done better against pressure this year. And then Jameson Williams, I've been like much lower than consensus on every week. This week they're very high on him. I've got him at wide receiver 31. Would you push him ahead of any of these guys? Like, if you talk about just like upside, he absolutely could be somebody who breaks this week. Is he really that much different than like Xavier Worthy this week from a volume standpoint? Maybe not. The notes versus the blitz, it's been pretty much all Sun God this year. Freaking 40% target per route run rate against the blitz, 5.29 yards per route run against the blitz. But JMO's target rate rises against the blitz, both last year and this year. And the Bucs have been pretty leaky against like speed receivers. We saw Kendrick Bourne go nuts in this matchup. Does this look about right for JMO? I never know what to do with him.
Yeah, no, I totally hear you. Yeah, it looks about right to me. I might lean to him over a Romeo Doubs, just because, while Doubs obviously has an awesome role in the end zone, Cardinals have been a bit more of a slot funnel this year, which is actually a positive note for Matthew Golden.
Yes,
Don't know that
sir.
I'd move him over Doubs, but yeah, Golden playing over 60% in the slot the last 2 weeks. Could be the Matthew Golden game. I think you have him ranked appropriately aggressively. Yeah,
I feel good about that one. All right, let's finish up with the Rams here, and then we'll take our second break. So on Kyren Williams, the Jaguars have been much worse against man gap runs. They're 4th in success rate allowed on those runs. No Devin Lloyd in this matchup. They also have by far the highest cover 6 rate, and Matthew Stafford is QB1 in passer rating versus cover 6 this year. Small sample size, of course, there. Was decent against it in the past. The Jags are not getting much pressure, and they have one of the slowest times to pressure. We know that they can get pressure, especially around the outside, but 2.6 seconds is their average time to pressure, which I think is 28th, 29th in the league. Stafford operates much faster than that. Like, if it's going to take you 2.6 seconds to get there, it's probably already out. If it has taken Stafford 2.6 or more seconds to throw this year, from what I found in the fantasy points status suite, is basically that means his first reads weren't there. His first, second, third reads weren't there. And that's what I mean when I say he works much faster than that. Is like, it doesn't take him 3 seconds to get through his reads. And by the time you're there, he's already checked down. That's basically what I saw if I like used the filter to look at only throws that came in 2.6 seconds or more. On those throws, his deep throw rate was the second lowest in the league. Only Joe Flacco had a lower deep throw rate on throws that took 2.6 seconds or longer. And Stafford only hit his first read he only had a 25% first read throw rate on these throws that took 2.6 seconds or longer. So as I look at this matchup, it seems like a spot where it's going to come down to the Rams and McVay being able to scheme and then beat as route runners beat the Jaguars coverages. And that makes me feel pretty good about Davante Adams. On throws coming before the 2.6 second mark, Stafford has the 5th highest deep throw rate and the highest first read rate. So again, feels like Davante Adams' spot. I hope we're going to see some Davante Adams versus Travis Hunter. That would be freaking awesome. For what it's worth, Adams leads the team in yards against cover 6, which is the coverage type that the Jaguars use relative to league averages at the highest rate. Last year, like Tyler Johnson, Tutu Atwell, Demarcus Robinson all had more yards than Puka Nacua did versus cover 6. So as I look at this matchup, I wonder if maybe it doesn't matter so much that Puka is going to miss this game, and we might see some more deep shots, particularly to Davante Adams. So obviously you're starting him, but I just wanted to mention I think it's a pretty high upside spot for the Rams passing game. This is maybe like your last chance to get a ticket on the Davante Adams, massive second half of the season that all the underlying data like suggests is probably coming, unless he's like washed, which I don't think he is. Do you have any thoughts on the Rams side of this matchup and everything I laid out there?
No, I would co-sign everything you said. I believe Adams projects as our wide receiver 2 on the week in our stuff over at Fantasy Points. So yeah, there's just so many targets that are like, where do you put them that Puka Nacua vacates? Like, it's kind of crazy. Mm-hmm. So yeah, totally co-sign Adams. Great. Like, it's hard to call him a buy low, but like buy before he goes completely insane in seasonal leagues. So yeah, I'm totally with you.
Would you trade George Pickens for him?
Yes, I would.
Would you trade Rashee Rice for him?
No, I would not.
Okay, I think that's about right. Odunze?
I'll say no. I'll say no, but I'm thinking, tough. But I thought about it. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. There's just so much upside with Adams. I feel like that it's. I don't know if Caleb can like facilitate it. Maybe like the heights that we could get to with Adams and Stafford. I don't know if we'll get there with Caleb in this offense in year 2. All right, we're gonna hit another break. We'll get back with some sicko DFS notes from Ryan.
This is European soccer's biggest stage.
Written in the stars. What a difference she has made.
The question is, can you handle it? Can you handle it? crowd here feels electric. Stream every match of the UEFA Women's Champions League on Paramount Plus.
All right, Ryan, I'm going to get to your thoughts in a moment, but like while we're here, we were just talking about Caleb and Odunze. I actually just want to stay there. I do not like the matchup. Anytime we get a match against a team that plays a lot of cover three, I get scared, which is really unfortunate because that is by far the most common coverage scheme in the NFL. And so we've got the Saints using cover three 39% of the time. That's the fifth highest rate in the league. You had some notes on Odunze, and I do think that cover three and single high coverages in general is a great thing for Odunze, right?
It is, yeah, but I do maybe want to push back like slightly on the Caleb cover three thing.
Alrighty.
So, yes. So while those splits are real, and I was also very disappointed to see them this week when I was digging into this game, I don't know that the Saints are going to be like a hugely cover three heavy defense. So in the fantasy points data suite, if you actually just go and split by week and see what they have played every single week, the Saints played 76% cover three in one game in week 3. I forget who it was against, the Seahawks or somebody, maybe. I could be totally wrong. But every other game, they've been basically league average, between 30% to like 37%. So I don't know that it's like a huge cover three heavy matchup. So I would maybe not be quite as concerned about Caleb for that reason. Yeah, I don't know if you have reactions to that, but I do think this is a solid game environment, like top 3 over under on the main slate. Yep. Saints always pushing a lot of pace. So I do think there's some upside here with Caleb.
Yeah, no, that's a great note, and is worth bringing up as you for any of you who dig into this stuff, that you can look at it. If you split it, let me show you. If you split it by week, that you can look at individual weeks and matchups for a team or a player or whatever, and like what some of these defenses and coordinators do kind of the same thing every week, but some of them definitely do not. And like one outlier week like that can really influence things. The Bears are implied for 26 points this week, which I think is 4th or 5th highest of any team. So, all right. Overall, then, like that makes me feel better for sure. Do you have any thoughts on Luther Burden? Because that's somebody that people are really curious about right now. You can take a matchup or just like anything in general from what you've seen from Burden. I'm curious to hear from you.
Yeah, I feel like nobody kind of knows like what will happen if DJ Moore misses this game. It's not like totally obvious to me that Burden just goes and plays outside in a full-time route share. I don't think they would want Olamide Zaccheaus out there. So most likely Burden plays more and it's good for him. And again, if it is outside, that's great. The Saints, I'm not going to say funnel because I see you guys in the chat hate when I say the word funnel, but they have been much more generous to the perimeter this year. 5th most schedule adjusted fantasy points per game allowed to outside receivers, 8th fewest to the slot. So if DJ Moore is out, then I would have some interest in Burden, just kind of on the assumption that he'll play outside more. But yeah, either way, like Rome just is very strong to me here. Saints are top 5 in single high rate. Odunze's TPRR goes from 0.2 to 0.28 against single high, easily leads the Bears in target share against single high, where it's actually DJ Moore that has been getting more work against too high. So maybe you just like plug Luther Burden into like the DJ Moore schematic matchup kind of consideration, and that makes Odunze more attractive than Burden.
TPRR is target per route run rate for anybody who's unfamiliar. So here's what I was talking about. I've got the data suite pulled up in the coverage matrix here. I've got the Saints searched specifically. And if you go to split over here, you can do week and apply that, and then go like week by week here. So at the bottom here is week 1, at the top is week 6, and you'll see like 91% zone rate, like Ryan talked about here in week 3, whereas like just the week following, it was 57% zone. So definitely things can fluctuate week to week. Just wanted to show you this. You can do this with players too. Just really, really cool. Alrighty. I've got a few notes here for the DFS slate, but let's get it started with what you had because you have a better grasp on like who's going to be rostered and all that. So you think Jayden Daniels might be the highest owned, the most popular quarterback that we've had all year for DFS, any DFS slate. Is that right?
Yeah, the early kind of industry ownership projections I'm seeing are upwards of 20%. I don't believe we've had a QB over 20% all season, unless I'm forgetting someone. It makes sense. 55 point over under, 6 more than any other game on the slate.
55 is crazy. That's the highest all year, right?
It might be, yeah. I want to say it was. So yeah, makes a lot of sense. He is a quarterback that can completely bury you, put up 40 plus with the rushing as well. So with that in mind, and also with it in mind that I think Quinshon Judkins is going to be very, very popular for all the matchup reasons we talked about, and also because this game could have 50 plus mile per hour wins. The narrative is like very strong on Quinshon Judkins about how amazing he is, and this is finally a game that the Browns will be leading. I think we're going to see Judkins go very highly owned. That's not necessarily bad. I like Judkins and all that, but the best pivot off of both of those players is Ja'Cory Croskey-Merritt. And we already talked about his matchup, so we don't need to spend a lot of time on him. But if he is lower owned than both of those players, like I will have so much just from a game theory leverage angle, because he benefits from both Jayden's misfortune if he's stealing touchdowns from him. And also he's the same exact price or within 100 or 2 of Judkins. So just a really strong like game theory pivot there. Let's see. We already talked about Saquon. We already talked about Kayshon Boutte.
I just want to stay there with the Washington real quick for people who aren't DFS people. Like we said, the 55 point over under is insanely high. It's the highest that it's been all year. And what we're talking about is that Vegas is implying the two teams combined for 55 points as a median projection, which means like there's upside for it to be significantly higher than each team averaging 27.5 points. It could be each team putting up 35 points, like that's the type of upside that exists here for sure when you've got Washington and Dallas going back and forth. And so like, even though it was disappointing last week with Bill in a game that like what did they put up? 24 points. We could see significantly higher than that. The median projection, the median outcome they're expecting is higher than that. This is a hard show to balance. Like even when you're like talking about leverage and stuff like that, I'm like, do I need to contextualize what that means? Like, I think you did a good job. It's like if Jayden doesn't score, if it's a rushing touchdown, that's touchdowns that he's not getting, and your lineup is benefiting in a way that the rest of them aren't. I love that call. If he's not going to be rostered at a high rate, to me, like, I guess it is. I have Judkins ranked higher, but like Bill, it just feels like there's so much more upside because of the game environment and everything. Okay, sorry, you can keep going. Who did you have after that?
Yeah, no, just fully agree, fully co-sign everything you're saying there. So after that, when we look at, I want to talk a little bit about Panthers Jets, because I do think people are going to want to play Breece Hall this week, and understandably so. But the matchup is not actually great, right? So Hall has the third highest rate of zone concept rush attempts. Panthers are allowing the lowest success rate to opposing zone concepts. I think like the Jets are definitely going to try to establish the run. They do every single game, but I think they are probably going to fail, especially with no Garrett Wilson. I think Rico Dowdle can run all over this defense for sure. And then maybe you get Mason Taylor in garbage time. It's a cover 3 heavy Panthers team, have always been very generous to opposing tight ends. Mason Taylor still leads the Jets in receiving yards against cover 3. I know that was a note from a couple weeks ago. Still the case. I don't think that like ultimately the upside is great there, just because it's the Jets and it's Mason Taylor, but maybe like a cheap punt there, or just if you want to bet Mason Taylor's props, I think that is understandable. Against the prevent defense they're going to be seeing when they're down by 20 late in the game.
For sure, could get garbage time Mason Taylor. I'm Do you think he's going to be popular? I feel like there's a number of tight end options, and then he had one catch for 2 yards last week, and everybody's terrified of the defense or of the passing game. I'm surprised to hear Breece will be popular. Do you think Mason Taylor will be?
I don't think Taylor will be at all. No. Yeah. I mean, he's at 3,400. Michael Mayer is probably like a better tight end punt at 3,500. So yeah, I don't think there's going to be a lot of Taylor ownership. Breece, it's weird. It could be one of these plays where we get these like every week where a guy projects really well, but it's like very obviously not a good game environment, or there's not like that much upside there. So every single person goes on their podcast and says, I'm not playing Breece because he's going to be so highly owned. And then he's like 5%. That happened with Devon Achane last week. And I was kicking myself because I would have played Devon Achane every time if I'd known he would be 5% in large fields. And it got there. So yeah, I'm way off track here, but we can go to.
This is good though. This is fun. I don't get to DFS until like Saturday, if at all, depending on how busy and full the week is. And so like I like getting in here, and I also like your DFS dweeb podcaster voice that you broke out. Breece at 6,300 is crazy to me to consider that he might be more popular than Bill. Like for reference, you guys saw the rankings earlier. I had Breece at running back 16, and I think there's a lot less upside. Like if I was just ranking on how high they could go, he would be basically in that same range where Bill and Judkins would both push higher. At tight end, like there's a ton to like this week. Do you have any Harold Fannin thoughts? I feel like I'm going way too far with Fannin, but like this is where I'm like, it's probably clearly biased that's coming in, but like when I hear about the wins, I'm like, that I don't know if that matters that much to me. Like I feel like that makes sense that they would still be intentional about getting him the ball. If anyone in the passing game, like it would be him in the short catch and run game. But like nobody's going to play him, right? Like even with the matchup against Miami and Njoku missing, do you think the wind and stuff would be enough that on a slate where there's tons of tight ends available, he would get played?
Yeah, I don't think Fannin's going to be played very much. He was projecting as a really strong value for us. I don't know if we've put in weather docs in the last couple hours since we've been getting the updates on those games. So that could change, but I agree with you. Just from a schematic perspective, it's really good too. Dolphins are kind of funneling everything underneath. Second most receiving yards per game allowed within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. That's all Harold Fannin. David Njoku potentially likely missing this game. I had some really fun Fannin notes too. I don't know if they'll see the light of day in the advanced matchups article, just again because of the weather. But I think that's reasonable. Like if there is a pass catcher in this game that doesn't matter for, it probably is Fannin, just because he will be used on these short design looks.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Let's stick with the tight ends though. So do you think Tyler Warren will be the most popular tight end? And for good reason. You thought that this was the blow up spot for him, right?
So like the early stuff I'm seeing is Trey McBride as the most popular tight end.
Okay.
That's another one though, where it's like Trey McBride projects awesome every week. He doesn't always end up actually being overowned. Tyler Warren will definitely be top 3 in tight end ownership. But I think it's like very, very much worth it. Let me just quickly get to my notes here on him. But yeah, so from a schematic perspective, Chargers play a ton of cover 4. Tyler Warren has a 37% target share against cover 4, over 3.7 yards per out run. That's 4th best among all wide receivers behind only Jayden Ja'Marr Chase and Emeka Egbuka. He smashed a cover 4 heavy matchup against the Cardinals last week with tying his career high 18.3 DraftKings fantasy points per game. We have Josh Downs likely out, which just means even more further consolidation. Chargers are much easier, or at least teams have thrown on the Chargers much more than they've run on them this year. I don't know that it's entirely true that it's easier to throw on them than run on them, but with like with a decently good total, I believe it's only a 1.5 point spread, could be a close back and forth game where the Colts actually do have to throw a little bit. I think Warren is very, very good.
Yeah, when I was making tight end rankings, like he and McBride felt the exact same. Like they project similarly, and I think that there's more upside with Warren. Like it wouldn't surprise me at all if he's the highest scoring tight end this week. So much involvement in and around the red zone near the goal line. Like I think that makes a lot of sense that he would be one of the best plays for DFS. I actually kind of expected McBride to be not as popular. I know he like always is, but just because there were a number of tight ends in good spots, I kind of liked McBride as somebody who would be a bring back for the Green Bay side of things. If this game turns interesting, isn't just Josh Jacobs running over and over. I thought that might be an overlooked angle. Does like Jordan Love, Matthew Golden, do they project for any ownership this week?
Don't believe so. No. Yeah, I think you'll be pretty much on an island with the Packers passing game.
That's what I figured.
Which is fair.
And that's good because that gives you a way to maybe like get off of the super common ways to use McBride this week. So McBride has a good spot against the Packers. If there is a way to attack this Green Bay defense, it's with the short passing game and getting it out quick, getting it in McBride's hands. They play a ton of zones. They have allowed more targets to the tight end position per game than any team. Tight ends haven't fared all that well against them. It is a really good defense, but McBride is pretty unique and I think could create plays all on his own. For the Green Bay side of things, the Cardinals are still a little bit banged up in the secondary. They play a ton of cover 4, which Jordan Love has been very good against and has been willing to take shots down the field against. Ryan brought up that cover 4 doesn't have to be just checkdowns. It can be a zone that you can beat over the top. And then you thought this was a good spot specifically for Golden in this slot, right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I already really said it, but yeah, Cardinals 4th most schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed to the slot. Golden at 68% of his routes in the slot over the last 2 games. Yeah, if we are beating cover 4 over the top, then that can certainly be Matthew Golden. Tucker Kraft does lead the team in yards per out run against cover 4, and he's just someone I always have some interest in. Given how freaking good he is and the offense he plays on, it's always like a pretty strong total where we're really ultimately just chasing touchdowns at the tight end position. So I think, yeah, like Love plus Kraft plus Golden. You could even triple stack him with throw Dobbs in there too. I guess like one general note I would say on this slate is because, did I already say this? Hopefully not, but just because we have this albatross of a 55-point over-under game, and because Jayden Daniels can bury everybody on the slate with 40-plus fantasy points, I think more than any previous week, you want to lean very, very hard into stacking your quarterbacks. Like I am much more willing to go to triple stacks this week than in other weeks, just because a pocket passer has to hit like his 95th plus percentile outcome to really succeed or get you anywhere on this slate, most likely. There are some weeks where we don't have like the elite quarterbacks on it. We don't have like a game that's expected to go insanely crazy, and you can get away with 25 points from Dak Prescott or whatever, or from Jordan Love. I don't think that's this week. I think you need like 30 plus point upside out of your QB this week. So you want to play to that scenario where it's like, oh yeah, the Packers just throw 4 touchdowns this week.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Would you take it even further and do a big no-no, play 2 tight ends? Would you play McBride with Kraft?
On like last week's slate, I would have been more amenable to that just because it was a lot more tightly priced. I don't think you have to go there this week. There's a lot of really good running backs to play in the flex. But it's interesting. Like I don't think you need to on if you're stacking Green Bay, Arizona, just because you're already unique by stacking Green Bay, Arizona, most likely. So you don't have to get like that fancy, but it makes sense with the 2 players that you can get access to. So yeah, I guess I don't hate it.
I looked at the Green Bay splits versus cover 4 last year, and Kraft didn't have a very high target rate. It was more so pushing down the field to Dobbs, to Wicks, to even Watson a little bit. And then if not them, it was like 2.5 yard average depth of target for Jaden Reed and 4 yard average depth of target for Kraft, right? It was either big play down the field or a dump off. So that's why I lean more towards Golden. I really like the usage we got last week. He's still cheap. And I think that the big play is coming soon, right? Like whether that's catch and run or over the top, I think we're going to get one of those soon where they connect. And so I would like to be early on it, and this seems like a good spot for it. The Cardinals have given up a ton of catches and fantasy points at the tight end position too, so it absolutely could be Kraft. Was there anything? Oh, Zach Ertz was another tight end we had notes on. What do you think about Zach Ertz? We've talked about Jayden Daniels a lot. Do you think he's a good pairing with him?
I think he is, yeah. And he'll have some ownership. I'm seeing around 10% projected right now, but that's like just throwing Zach Ertz into your Jayden Daniels stack is a decent way to save on ownership. Cowboys are playing zone and cover 2 at the highest rate in the NFL. That is very positive for Zach Ertz over a Deebo Samuel, over a Terry McLaurin if we end up getting him. So he's like just a nice little kind of add-on there. I don't know that I would go to him outside of Jayden Daniels lineups, but just did want to mention that schematic note. I have like 2 other kind of like stack focused takes on the slate if we want to go through them. I don't know where else you want to bring it here, Jacob.
What I was going to bring up next, just to close out tight end, was that I think you could go with Aronde Gadsden for the Chargers, because I know that you liked the matchup for Herbert. And so to me, this is kind of like a secondary type of huge shootout that could occur. Like it's not nearly as appealing as like Washington, Dallas, of course. But if we get a lot of points in this Chargers-Colts game, the role did really expand for Gadsden. And you like the pass funnel, I'll say it, pass funnel leaning nature of the matchup here against the Colts. So do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, Gadsden totally makes sense. Yeah, the utilization was great. I don't have any specific matchup notes on him.
What's his roster rate going to be, like 2%? I feel like
I'm probably, I'm seeing around 1 to 2% projected right now. He doesn't project that well across the industry, but yeah, if you think he continues to command the type of target volume he did last week, then
I also think he's just going to be. I think he's going to be a red zone weapon for them. Like it depends on what happens and how their drives go, but I think when they get down to the red zone, he's going to be somebody that they're looking to.
Yeah, no, I don't hate that at all. I like that quite a bit. But yeah, I guess I'll just pivot here to the Chargers in general, to Justin Herbert. So it feels like every single week this year, people have wanted to play Justin Herbert because it's a high pass rate offense. Like they are able to put up points. Herbert was playing very well early in the year. It's been a little tougher with all the offensive line injuries lately. But yeah, it feels like every week people wanted to play Justin Herbert. This week, a lot fewer people want to play Justin Herbert, and I really want to play Justin Herbert. Colts are top 5 in pass rate over expectation allowed, been much easier to throw on them. Top 4 in yards per game allowed on throws 20 or more yards downfield. So we do have the big play upside against the secondary as well. Second most schedule adjusted to outside wide receivers or to wide receivers in general, very generous to both the slot and the outside. And the Colts have also not been getting very much pressure, just under a 34% pressure rate this year. That is the 7th fewest. And when Herbert has had the time to throw, when he's not been pressured, we have seen him overwhelmingly go to Quentin Johnston, who is over 3 yards per out run on plays Herbert is kept clean. That's about a 3x efficiency boost. Similar for Keenan Allen, 34% target per out run when Herbert's not pressured. And it's Ladd McConkey who kind of gets screwed when there is no pressure. He's at just a 16% target share when Herbert's clean, goes up to 27% when he's been pressured. He's kind of like the security blanket outlet type of play. So what that means is because McConkey is going to be the most expensive and probably the most popular of that Chargers trio, I just love stacking up Justin Herbert plus QJ, assuming we get QJ, plus Keenan Allen, having that be my stack. Tyler Warren's the easy bring back. You could add in Aronde Gadsden. We were just talking about triple stacks and how that is more viable on this slate, somewhere I want to go to more. So I actually really like that. Throw in, I guess that's a 2 tight end build, but still that's maybe getting a little crazy galaxy brain here. But I think that's really solid angle that people are not going to totally be on. Herbert will be like probably top 5, top 6 among QBs in ownership, but I don't even know that he gets into double digits.
Anytime you start going crazy galaxy brain, I just want to take it further. Will you consider Trey Harris if Quentin Johnson is out? 3,300. Led the team in routes.
He did. Yeah, he just played the Quentin Johnson role. Like we can't put our best pass catchers on the field the most often. We have to have these these dedicated roles that a player plugs and plays into. I guess I would at 3,300. I don't know. On this slate, I don't know like what you can do with the savings. I haven't done a ton of building. There's like some decent pay up options that I guess then you could easily get up to Jonathan Taylor too in that lineup. Yeah, that could make sense if you're doing like a bunch of Herbert lineups and want to mix and match there. I think that would be in play. Yeah.
I actually really like Trey Harris. That's somebody that Dan and I talk about a lot. He was a bit inconsistent, of course, this week. He's not perfect as a route runner yet, but probably, I don't know if I need to say yet. He'll probably never be perfect as a route runner, but he is explosive for sure. Okay. What else do we have here? Let's talk about the Chiefs. So I think they're another interesting way to get different at quarterback, right? The only quarterback that's more expensive than Jayden Daniels. Do you think people are going to go there? Obviously, we're excited to get Rice back, but they're huge favorites. Do you have any? Where are you going with the Chiefs? What do you think about them?
I do think Mahomes will be like a relatively popular tournament play. Not nearly as popular as Jayden Daniels, but I do think there will be some ownership. A lot of that is just because Rashee Rice is way too cheap. He's, I think, 5,600. Rashee Rice may be the highest owned player on the slate, and that would just be correct from what we've seen out of him over his career. He's been hyper targeted against cover 3 over his career, which the Raiders lead the league in, I believe, are very close to it. Top 2, 40% targets per out run against cover 3. But I do think that Xavier Worthy is like an interesting pivot off of Rashee Rice if you are wanting to go with Mahomes stacks for 2 reasons. One, all the Rashee Rice stuff is likely going to be overwhelmingly underneath, which is great for Rice, not necessarily great for Mahomes hitting his ceiling if we're primarily just targeting Rice underneath. Worthy has over an 18 average depth of target against cover 3 this year. Still a really strong target per out run, up at 35%, 24% more efficient against cover 3 by yards per out run over his career. So it's like a pretty strong schematic matchup for Worthy as well. Raiders have also been giving up a lot deep. So I think if you wanted to go with Mahomes, if you just leave Rashee Rice out of the stack and play Xavier Worthy instead, that's like pretty interesting. You probably should play Rice with Mahomes, don't get me wrong, but yeah, introducing Worthy in there as well, just because he's a bit more expensive. I don't think I think people think Xavier Worthy is dead now that Rice is back. I don't think it's that simple necessarily. Has maybe a bit more upside on like a per play explosive type of basis. So he's someone I'm really interested in.
Definitely interesting. I would not expect hardly anybody to go there. I think he hasn't looked quite as explosive as normal, maybe struggling a little bit to push off on that ankle. So I doubt he's going to be popular at all. Do you have any thoughts on Tedera McMillan? He's getting Sauce Gardner, who did shut down Cortland Sutton last week, but I think maybe T-Mac with a bit more explosiveness to his game might be somebody who can create some bigger wins. It's just that anytime that we get T-Mac in a spot where there's going to be a lot of man coverage, I'm intrigued, and I doubt people are going to go there. It seems like it's probably going to be a ton of running, right, for Carolina, like against the Jets. Is that just like not worth it to try to get cute with T-Mac there?
Yeah, I think that's going to mostly be my answer is I just don't think it's a good game environment. Jets have not been giving up big plays over the top really, so I don't know if it can get there from an explosive play sense to push the game environment either. But yeah, I'm with you. Like I had the exact same note of like, this is the most man coverage that T-Mac is going to face so far this season and maybe all season. It's like really annoying that his entire schedule is filled with like these zone heavy teams. So I might play a little bit of him literally just for that reason. Like when will T-Mac have a good schematic matchup again? Won't be for a while. Yeah, I mean, Sauce is good. He scares me a little bit less than like a Pat Surtain does. So that doesn't factor too much into it. But yeah, he's up at 3.7 yards per out run against man, just 1.35 against zone. That was true of him in college too. So yeah, sprinkle in a little bit of T-Mac, but not going to be like a priority for me on the slate.
Well, he's not even cheap. That's the thing. Like, he's
Yeah.
400 more than Lad McConkey. He's only 200 less than Roma Dunze. Let me show you my rankings for week 7 at wide receiver, because I have McConkey ahead of him. I'm wondering if maybe I'm a little bit too low on T-Mac, which I never want to be. I've got him at wide receiver 18. People say T-Mac got fortunate to get 2 touchdowns on only 5 targets last week. You know what often helps your fortune? Being really good. That's where we're at with T-Mac. What do you think here? I've got him ahead of Michael Pittman, Chris Olave, T. Higgins we talked about. Brian Thomas Jr., I'm very curious if you have any Jaguars thoughts. Probably move Waddle behind him, unfortunately, with the weather. Does this look about right?
Yeah, I think that's right. I don't think I would get him over McConkey. In terms of Jaguars thoughts, the Rams are a little bit more cover 3 heavy this year than they've been in the past. And so that's been good for Brian Thomas and Travis Hunter, actually, in terms of target rate, but it's not been good for them in terms of efficiency. I don't totally know what to do with that note. From like a macro perspective, I'm pretty optimistic on Brian Thomas Jr. over the rest of the season. I had a long diatribe about that in the Everything report this week, where basically I think this Jaguars offense is going to continue to consolidate a lot more without Brenton Strange over the next month plus. It's just, to me, it looks like he's playing a little better. There's still definitely like the in-breaking routes over the middle where he like has a bad drop, or it looks like he's not like totally focused, or he's a little in his own head. But like, I was encouraged by the BTJ tape in week 6, had that touchdown wiped off the board by Hunter lining up offside. Like, I think BTJ is like a fringe top 14, top 15 wide receiver rest of season. So yeah, I'm probably higher on him than most people right now.
I'm really curious to see what happens with the usage this week. There's like the rumor that they're going to use more wide receiver 1 looks for Travis, whatever that means. I will say, Ryan, I brought up last week that his route number had been in between 23 and 27 routes every game. That went through the roof last week, right? 44, yeah. I think is what I saw. So that's good to see. People are obviously getting real frustrated with the results that we have from Travis Hunter, which is totally fair. If you drafted him around 6 or whatever, I mean, he was the 2nd overall pick in the real draft, so you probably expected more production from him. Matt Harmon's reception perception charting feels pretty good with him still. When I watch him, I think that we're getting more and more wrinkles to his game and his route tree, and he's feeling more and more comfortable out there. I think that we're still live for some points from Travis Hunter at the end of the year. Okay, I want to talk about a couple more bring back options, some potential stacks here to throw into your guys' lineups. I think Roma Odunze is one of the best plays I see at receiver. And I do think if I'm bringing it back with anybody from New Orleans, it's going to be Rashid Shaheed. You could go with Olave. The volume has definitely been there with Olave. I don't really have any interest in like stacking this game entirely, though. It would probably be just like 2 receivers together and hoping it gets back and forth, but I would probably just go with a different quarterback option. Do you have any thoughts on that? I like Shaheed because of the man coverage and everything here against Chicago, but you can take any direction you want on the game theory side of how to play this.
Yeah, no, I think that's really solid. Basically, every week we see Chris Olave will project for a lot of ownership. He's another guy where it's like kind of similar to a Trey McBride some weeks, where it's people are like sick and tired of having Chris Olave's XFP shoved down their throat in the projections, so he doesn't always end up actually that popular. But he's projecting for like top 5 ownership among wide receivers on the slate right now. I wouldn't mind leaning into Olave. I think, I mean, what are the Bears, like 8th or 9th in man coverage rate? To me, that's not like notable enough to have like a schematic preference to Shaheed. But I mean, certainly just like matchup stuff aside, like, yeah, Shaheed on any given play in any given game can absolutely outscore Olave just from the deep shots. So yeah, I mean, I never hate the Olave to Shaheed pivot. It feels like a nice little button you can press every single week.
Yeah, he's super cheap too. Like we talked about Golden earlier, Shaheed is 200 cheaper than him, and like Golden hasn't really done anything yet. Whereas we've seen like rather be able to get a spike week for Shaheed. The last one I wanted to bring up that I doubt people will be going to. Let me know if that's wrong. Is the Denver and New York Giants game? Wait, that's not on the main slate, is it?
No, it is. I thought.
Okay, yeah, it is.
I had notes for it. I hope
Okay,
it.
good.
I hope
No,
to
it
God
is.
it is. Yeah. Okay.
I got mixed up here. So Dart is still just 5,200. Do you think anyone's going to go to Dart on the road against Denver?
I don't think so. I don't think anyone's going to Dart. I don't think anyone's going to Bo Nix. I want to let you talk about Dart first, though, before I rant about Bo Nix.
Well, it's just unprecedented running that we've seen, and I don't really know why it would stop. I think he's got a matchup that's very similar to what we saw last week. So the Eagles, I showed you guys earlier that you can like split it by week and look at each individual week and matchup for the defenses. The Eagles changed what they normally do. Fangio is like one of the most zone-heavy coverage schemes normally, but went extremely man-heavy last week against Dart and used a lot of blitz. So it's like anytime they're blitzing, it was either man or some kind of cover 3 hybrid back there, single high looks and sending more people at Dart. And I thought he navigated that really well. You know, it's just one game, but like the Eagles defense maybe isn't quite at the level of the Denver's is at right now, but like that was really impressive to me. And now we've got a full week and a half to prepare for this Denver matchup. So if like ever there's a time to feel okay about a rookie traveling to Denver, I kind of think it's off of the semi-long week here. I don't remember where they're at in implied total. I just feel like if he's passed every test so far, and this is obviously a big one here, but his ability to like, already we know we're going to get a lot of designed runs. He's averaging 5 designed runs per game, which is absurd. That's way more than anybody else. Also, there's the scrambles, and especially against a blitz heavy, man heavy coverage matchup, like if he's able to navigate and get out, there's going to be a lot of space when he scrambles, right? So that's why he's intriguing to me, is like if you just took name out of it and just looked at like how they're delivering their fantasy points and running, like he basically looks really comparable to Jayden Daniels this year on a per game per dropback basis, but he's 5,200.
Yeah. No, I am largely with you. Yeah, 0.7 fantasy points per dropback against man this year. It's because he's scrambling 50% more often against it, 17% scramble rate against man. I'm kind of with you. My only hesitation on Dart is what we talked about earlier. It's a very high bar on this slate to get to like reach the heights of what Jayden Daniels is probably going to do. So I just don't know who to stack Dart with, man. Like Wan'Dale Robinson, like in theory in the slot should be better. Avoid Surtain. He's been like okay against man coverage this year, but I mean, not really historically. I don't really want Wan'Dale as like my man beater in my offense. Doesn't really get me all that excited. So yeah, I just don't know what to do stacking wise there. And maybe you don't. Maybe you say, okay, I can play Jackson Dart naked with Broncos bringbacks, and then I get up to Jonathan Taylor, I get up to Josh Jacobs, I get up to Rome Odunze and CeeDee Lamb and all of these expensive pieces elsewhere. Yeah, it's interesting. I'll play around with it in the builder. I don't know if I'm going to play any Dart though.
Yeah, I don't have a good bring back option with him, honestly. And I think your point about needing more upside than usual from the quarterback position is totally valid in this case, because I don't know if he gets you there. And also, I don't know if you really need the savings of going down. We've talked about a bunch of different value options. I just wanted to bring it up because I thought it was maybe a spot where he could succeed. And I don't know if people will give that to him. So if you can get a cheap rushing quarterback at low rostered rate, like that's just like in my brain is like, yes, go there. But I think on this specific slate, maybe you don't have to. If you don't have a bring back, would you play Sutton? Like, is he somebody, because I feel like he's too cheap and the matchup is good. And if Dart is able to put points on the board and get this into more of a back and forth game than the freaking 40 point and over under would suggest, that Sutton might be a sneaky, really high upside play against a man heavy Giants defense. But do you think that makes sense, or is it better to just avoid this entirely?
No, I think that makes sense. I think if you are playing Dart, then you 100% should be playing Sutton in that lineup. I'm
saying it just as a, like, do you have interest in Sutton? You wouldn't even have to go to Dart necessarily. Okay.
Yeah, no, I have interest in Sutton straight up. Yeah, as you said, man-heavy matchup. Target share jumps from just 17% against zone up to 32% against man this year. Yeah, Sutton is a player I'll probably have like one-off exposure to. Yeah. But also, like, this Giants man-heavy stuff gets me interested in Bo Nix.
Okay.
So Nix would be against man coverage, 0.68 fantasy points per dropback. That would rank as the QB2. He would rank as just the QB 32 against zone. So more man coverage, good for Bo Nix. Hasn't played like that well this year. I would agree on that, but he's gone over 29 DraftKings fantasy points in 4 of his last 16 games. So there is like some upside for him to get up to that 30-point area. Sutton's an easy stack. Both Marvin Mims and Troy Franklin, I think, can work only as stacks. Do not play either of these guys like just in your lineups or whatever as one-offs. But the the man-heavy matchup also helps them. Franklin's target share also nearly doubles against man. Giants slot funnel, as we said earlier. But Marvin Mims over a 4 yards per out run against man. It's like a part-time role, and this is only something you get to in like the largest field tournaments. Yeah. You're playing like multiple Bo Nix lineups. But I don't think that Mims's ceiling is actually really any worse than Troy Franklin's. Like, he only has like 90 fewer air yards on the season. Franklin's floor, roll, all of that is obviously much better, but I think you can like mix in some Mims too. Giants' most extreme pass funnel in the NFL. Third most receiving yards per game on throws, 20 more yards downfield. Like, I see how this game shoots off.
Yeah.
I think it's probably Nix that benefits most over Dart, but for, as you're saying, like for a game that it has such a low over under, I have way too many notes and I'm way too interested in it.
This is sick stuff. We're going to end on this. I think what I'm going to do, Ryan, is I'm going to go make an afternoon only slate, because I don't even think that these guys will be that much less rostered there. You know, I think they'll still be ignored even when there's only 4 games to choose from, because you got the Colts Chargers game, you've got the Commanders and Cowboys game. And I think I'm going to make me some disgusting Broncos Giants stacks, and we're going to win some money this weekend in big field tournaments. All right, good stuff. Ryan, what can you plug for the people in terms of what you guys are working on over at Fantasy Points Data?
Yeah, so we talked about it a little bit last week, but we just made a bunch of our weekly tables free over in the Fantasy Points data suite. We're working on a few other tables that are going to be releasing soon that I can't announce yet, but that will be keep it locked to my Twitter feed, Fantasy Points Data Twitter feed, for updates on that. And if you haven't gotten into the Fantasy Points Data Suite yet, you can use promo code matchups15 for 15% off any package over at Fantasy Points. Also, all our packages are currently discounted right now because we are more than a month into the season. We give you guys a little bit of a haircut on the price there since there's less season left. And that discount will stack with Matchups 15 with that promo code. So don't even worry about that. Go over, use it, data.fantasypoints.com. And then, as always, I'm on Twitter at RyanJ_Heath. And advanced matchups in article form is coming out tomorrow morning over on fantasypoints.com.
Great stuff, Ryan. Thank you so much. Matchups 15. Go get your hands on some dank data over at the Fantasy Points Data Suite. This has been Mastering Matchups on Beyond the Box Score. Thank you guys so much for being here. Please like, please hype, please comment. Give us some questions on the old Apple iTunes reviews if you have those, and Dan and I will get to them next week. But until then, take care.